The Canada-US border has been closed since early March to try and stop the spread of COVID-19 among the two countries. Only essential trips are allowed, and those who cross into Canada will be mandated to quarantine for 2 weeks to ensure they aren't infected with the novel coronavirus. While this has meant Canadians were unable to head to the States for back-to-school shopping this summer, it's also meant cross-border families have been unable to see their loved ones for months. It is not just a few dozen families which have been negatively impacted by the border closures. This popular Facebook group is made up of over 2,000 members, each person a part of a family which has been torn apart because of the borders being closed. Now, most of the members on this Facebook group say they understand why the borders had to close in early March, but feel governments from both sides of the border have had 8 months to come up with a plan to safely allow cross-border families to reunite. American-born Breck Metra has been unable to see her Canadian boyfriend Landon since early March. She lives in Utah and he lives in Vancouver, British Columbia. The two knew they would be practicing a long-distance relationship for the first while of their time together, but could have never imagined they would be this far apart for so long. The two met a few years ago while at a rehabilitation center in Canada. Now, I know you mentioned that you did sign up to be in a long-distance relationship. You knew that going into this, that you would not see each other that often, at least for a little while, but we're in unprecedented times. I'm sure you could have never imagined that you would be this far apart for so long.
I think the biggest thing, we obviously signed up to do long distance for a little bit, so we had that kind of we surrendered to that. But I think the hardest thing is just the uncertainty and not knowing when it will open, and kind of pretty much every month we've been waiting to see are they going to extend the borders, what is going to happen, and then it's kind of it's tough to not be able to plan or just have an end date. It'd be a lot easier if we just knew, okay, April 2021, that's when it will be done, so we knew. But I think it's just hard to just wait and not know. So obviously I applied to get that extended family authorization, but I applied 2 weeks ago now and I haven't heard anything, so that's also really hard as well. I mean, we do, because we're lucky, because we, like I said in the beginning, we signed up for long distance. We knew we would do this for at least a few months, so we already kind of had set up a good base to what long distance looks like. So we do the best we can, and we just know that we found the person that we want to be with. So we don't really question whether or not we'll be together or if this will work out. But it definitely it's hard, but we just try. I mean, every day when we're off work, we video and we kind of just coexist together. We'll just set up our computers and just make dinner or watch a movie, whatever we would do if we were together. We just kind of we pretend that they're there.
Breck says she understands why the border was forced to close at the beginning of the pandemic, with so many unknowns about how the virus spreads and how serious it could get. Recently, both the United States and Canada have come to an agreement to allow some people to cross the border if it's to see family on the other side. While that's a positive step in reopening the border, Breck feels more can still be done.
I mean, they've taken a good step in letting extended family members visit or have a potential to visit, but I do think that they could implement things like rapid COVID testing or require testing before you get on a plane, so you can prove a negative COVID test. I think those things, if you implemented that, it would just make it go smoother, because even if I do get to go, I have to quarantine for 14 days, so I can't leave the room. So I'm having to take off work, and it's just kind of a strain, but I'm willing to do it just so I can see to him. However, I just think at this point it's kind of drawn out, in my opinion.
We're looking at the border with Canada. Canada would like it opened, and we want to get back to normal business. We have the USMCA all done, the new trade deal replacing NAFTA, which was probably the worst trade deal ever made by anybody. It was grossly incompetent. We have a great trade deal right now, and so we're going to be opening the borders pretty soon. Say it? Could be. Yeah, we're working with Canada. We want to pick a good date. Having to do with the pandemic.
Donald Trump has been a proud supporter of reopening the Canada-US border, saying weeks ago that it would be reopened in time for the US federal election. But recently, Canada has announced the border would remain closed until at least November 21st, news which was not fully welcomed by the president. Breck says as she heads to the polls to vote for the next president of the United States, this issue weighs heavily on her mind. While she can see both pros and cons in President Donald Trump and former Vice President Joe Biden, she understands why Canadians would want to keep the border closed.
We can only do what we can, and our numbers are so high because we have so many more people than Canada in general. So of course our numbers are going to continue to probably be high, but I do think he will take it a little bit more serious and implement measures that Trump didn't, just to ensure the safety of everybody.
Breck hopes to see her boyfriend Landon again soon and is already preparing for the future. She would like to move up to Canada and get married before possibly settling in the United States. If this extended period of distance has meant anything for the two, it's only brought them closer together.
He'd love to come down here and meet my family, and then we do plan on getting married and kind of starting our life in Canada. But I think ultimately we'll live in the US, but I think start out, get married, do that whole thing, spend time together, and then go from there. But yeah, he hasn't even met my family in person, so it's kind of hard to, I don't know. It doesn't even feel like we're like in a real relationship because we know each other so well, but our families are like, this is a stranger. Like my dad met him a couple months ago on Zoom, which is like so funny. It goes in the theme of 2020, but it's just, I don't know. We try to have the best attitude we can because there's nothing else we can do.
Well, today, one day before the U.S. presidential election, Breck did get some good news. She was told her application to go and visit her boyfriend in Canada has been accepted. Now, Breck says she plans to travel to Canada sometime at the beginning of December, saying she is absolutely ecstatic to see her boyfriend for the first time since early March. Charlie Cenac, TVYN News.